Anand, over to you, please.
Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to the distinguished guest in the specially curated session today. My name is Anand Dutta, and I'm the head of Global Alliance for Cybersecurity Competency at Tech Mahindra. And I'm honored to be your anchor for today's session. Today, we have brought to you an elite panel of industry leaders who would be sharing their thoughts on a very important and interesting topic. The topic we will cover today is preventing advanced persistent threats by SOC augmentation. As you would have seen, over the last few years, there has been a dramatic change in the information security, cybersecurity space. The highly sophisticated and capable teams of attackers successfully expanded their intrusions at government and defense-related targets to researchers, manufacturers, law firms, and even non-profit organizations were not spared. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed the world and cybersecurity threat vectors in many ways. COVID has changed the way we do business. Most people are now working remotely, usually from their homes. With this vast increase in number of remote workers, a huge number of pain points and vulnerabilities have proliferated in the most corporate networks. The increase in threat vectors and potential targets make it easier for hackers and criminals to breach the perimeter. In the recent years, an increased number of these attacks are coming from nation states or cyber criminal groups sponsored by them. The intrusion appear to be conducted by well-funded, organized groups of attackers. We call them the Advanced Persistent Threats, the APTs. And they are not hackers. Their motivation, techniques, and tenacities are vastly different. They are professionals, and their success rate is also very impressive. These APT mostly compromises any targeted desires. The conventional information system and defense mechanism won't work here. They don't simply work. So what are our options here? So in today's session, we will present some interesting perspectives from ISG, and then later on, we'll see how Tech Mahindra and AT&T have partnered to deliver a next generation managed SOC service to tackle the problems that I just talked about. All right, so before I start the discussion today, I would like to suggest the distinguished audiences who have joined us today that all your interesting questions that you may have throughout the session, please post them on the Q&A window. We would have a Q&A session at the end of the panel discussion. And also, we would give you a chance to raise your hands, and then you can directly ask your questions to the annual panel that we have today. All right, without any further ado, let me invite our first distinguished speaker, Mr. Craig Beatty, a distinguished analyst from ISG. Craig is an advisor with ISG with over 30 years of C-level experience in ICT, HR, marketing, research, leadership, and international business. Craig was also recently the head of global strategy and digital services for Fujitsu in Japan. Before he joined ISG, right? So, Craig, thanks for being a part of the session today. Welcome.
Good. Thank you very much, Anand. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. As you can probably tell from my accent, I am Australian, and so I'm going to be speaking at 1/4 of my normal speed, and I will be using punctuation and grammar. I'm delivering this presentation from Sydney, where it's currently 3 a.m. and hopefully when I wake up, it will look something like this nearby to where I live. I'm going to share my screen now, and so you should be able to see that. Despite the hour, I'm very pleased to set the scene for this webinar by sharing with you this presentation. Sorry, I'm having a bandwidth issue. Give me 1 second. Sorry, please bear with me. Okay, so that should be okay now. Hopefully you can all hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, Craig.
Great, and you can see my presentation. Yeah, my screen just went blank and froze, so I don't know what you saw at that end.
You're all good. We can see the screen and the presentation, Craig. The stage is yours.
Great. So, yeah, despite the hour, I'm pleased to set the scene for the webinar by sharing with you a sneak preview of some of the independent research which ISG will be publishing shortly, enabled by and being delivered to you by Tech Mahindra. And it's all about advanced persistent threats and the ZTA or ZTA imperative in a mid-COVID world, depending on what English you speak. So I will standardize on ZTA. Not sure if you know about ISG, but we're a leading provider of services which enables the efficient and effective procurement of ICT services and solutions by enterprises globally. As part of that process, ISG works with clients on a daily basis, and we also have a large research arm of which I'm part. And so let's start the presentation. Earlier this year, ISG research partner Data Driven surveyed around 300 CIOs and senior ICT decision makers across 9 countries, focusing on digital transformation, and it revealed a number of strategic ICT challenges. Now, we did ask 22 questions covering everything from hardware and comms through to quantum computing. However, 10 of the top 12 strategic challenges ended up being related to security. This is exactly how it happened, with only 2 related to staffing issues, and everything else was lower than that. So you can see how important security is now, and a key reason for the increased security challenges has been the COVID-19 pandemic, which has led to many more employees working remotely, very often from their homes. And although there have been advantages, this increased the number of cyber attacks due to less secure networks. And so what we discovered is that at least half of the cyber attacks are due to human error. So the importance of maintaining a culture of cyber resilience has never been more important, and companies need to adopt the next generation of cybersecurity operating model. So what we've seen is an increased prevalence of APTs. APT, or Advanced Persistent Threats, are actually attacks that use sophisticated techniques and which persist over time. And in recent years, nation states have emerged as serious players, introducing the concept of cyber warfare, as well as the theft of intellectual property. Such attacks often use many techniques and increasingly take the form of sustained campaigns designed to disrupt, intimidate, and otherwise interfere with the operations of government and their agencies, political parties, and major corporations. So, techniques used to counter APTs are often described as advanced threat protection or advanced threat management. Now, the chart here shows over time the security response landscape and how it has evolved as the threat footprint and the sophistication of the threat itself has evolved. So to start with, cybersecurity was based on point products. And now there are a whole range of integrated suites that handle these things. Initial cybersecurity issues were all about on-premise, and now it's mostly in the cloud, software as a service and those offerings, which increases the danger and the ability for advanced persistent threats to actually attack. Cybersecurity philosophies have moved from reactive to proactive, and in many cases, counterattack. And we've moved from manual intervention through automation, and now the most advanced systems use AI for pattern matching to do things that humans couldn't do and match patterns way before the system is even aware that they've been attacked. And finally, we've gone from a focus on internal, the individual, where individual security and individual device security in a locked environment or a secure location was the key, to external, across the enterprise, and then global, looking at people who are attacking from outside the nation, often sponsored by nation states. So traditional, there may have been a bit of a delay with the bandwidth. It's just showed up on my screen. So the chart looks like that. Traditional cybersecurity tools have done a relatively good job at enabling enterprises to protect the office perimeter, but professional attackers have now shifted their attention to weaker elements in the overall corporate security chain. So in the mid-COVID world, they often find the weakest link to be employees, which an increasing number of whom are working remotely or beyond the office perimeter. So today, a security mindset that helps employees think like an attacker becomes more and more mission critical. So what does an APT attack look like? Well, no 2 attacks are the same, but many of them follow a consistent pattern. And so we've created a list of steps that isn't perfect, and there are lots of other models, but this is generally what happens when an APT or an attacker tries to get into your network. To start with, they perform reconnaissance of some time. So, they identify a human or technical target as a building block for the attack method. And so an example could be that the attacker steals management email signatures by posing as a client. Then the attacker does some research. And this could be that they start collecting individual corporate information. Maybe it's come out of someone's garbage. Maybe it's come from social media or online information. People just post way too much out there. In fact, the Australian Tax Office issued a bulletin yesterday saying, please be careful about what you put on social media, because people are using it to spoof your tax records and get access to all sorts of things. So just don't share so much. So the attacker finds the identities of managers and the staff. Then they get the initial compromise. Now, this could involve hiding malicious code in identified individuals' emails, which infects the system, or they exploit an identified vulnerability on a system fencing the internet. For example, an attacker might assume the manager's persona and request passwords from staff. That looks real, and you've probably seen emails like that, but when you check on the address, it hasn't come from someone internally. And then they establish a foothold. So they've got a password, they've got some email addresses, and then they start exerting control over some compromised systems. This could be that they install a Trojan in a compromised data or compromised system. The next step is they try and escalate their privileges. So if the system doesn't already meet the objectives of their mission, we'll talk about what their mission might be in a minute, they then try to acquire broadened access to other systems that are horizontal or vertically integrated, or even outside. And so the attacker repeats the process with other staff members until they end up looking like they're 100% part of the system. So then they continue their internal reconnaissance. They secure and escalate their level of systems control, and they analyze the surroundings of now infected systems to identify even more systems that they can get to, like a virus. So they use the access to identify further weaknesses. They move laterally. They move steadily from system to system within the compromised landscape. They extend their presence, and you may not even know they're there at this stage. And then they attempt to maintain their presence, waiting for an opportunity to attack or get access to the data they want, or gain access to other remote services such as the VPN. So they just lie dormant. And then they move in to complete the mission. Now, their mission may be short-term, harvest the intended information for ransomware or sell data, or it may be long-term where they just lurk in the background waiting for that critical piece of information that may be able to be extracted. And an organization I know of recently discovered something that had been sitting on their site for more than 6 months just waiting. They don't know what it was going to do. They don't know if it did anything, but when they found it, it caused all sorts of problems for that organization. So APT attacks come in many forms, and there are many ways to protect against them. And there's a combination of technical and human factors that fall into four main categories: prevention, detection, response, and analysis. Prevention, the best defense against any cyber attack, including APTs, is preventing them from happening at all, or successfully deflecting them from the outset. Of course, as we know, prevention is better than cure. There are a number of components in here: gathering intelligence and setting policy and patching, but I think the key one is to develop an organization-wide policy that defines things such as the asset you wish to protect, the access rights to those assets, procedures for handling and storing sensitive data, acceptable use, password and verification, email practices, patch practice, protection of mobile devices and endpoint devices such as USB drives, use of social media, and cyber incident reporting and strategy. So in this particular area, the overall policy of what you should and shouldn't do is extremely important. The next level is detection and response. It doesn't matter, with the best will in the world, you're likely to be attacked, and you must assume that you will be. Key to this is an intrusion detection system, or SIM suite. An IDS is a hardware or software-based monitor usually employed for a specific part of an organization's system. So the different technologies and techniques that are used are often referred to as SIEM, or Security Incident and Event Management. And similarly, endpoint detection and response is extremely important, especially as we have so many things connected. People have their home PCs connected to their doorbell, which is connected to an alarm or a camera, but that's an endpoint device that could be hacked even externally to gain access to your network. and you don't know what your employees and staff actually have connected generally. So APTs often use the weaker defenses of end-user devices in their initial attacks. And so tools that monitor all end-user devices and activities in their interaction with the cloud and the host are extremely important. And then we have analysis and reporting. A number of factors here, from monitoring through to auditing and governance, but I think the important thing is behavioral monitoring. Unusual activity by system users may be an indicator of a potential security problem. An unexplained increase in traffic by a discrete group of end users might also indicate an unusual number of intrusion attempts. And then auditing, governance, and compliance. Can't emphasize this enough, and you'll see why later as well. But data collection and reporting capabilities are an essential tool for auditing system performance. Compliance to certain security standards is increasingly a statutory obligation, with most jurisdictions introducing new compliance and reporting obligations. So that's a simplified view of a framework that should be part of every cybersecurity environment. Ideally, enterprises should maintain a zero trust architecture, or ZTA, to fight or even prevent cybersecurity attacks, and in particular, advanced persistent threats. A ZTA, as the name suggests, means that no component of a corporate network is trusted, and that every access by every component must be verified. This is a very different concept to the traditional paradigm of perimeter security. With a ZTA, the old concept of trust and verify is replaced with a new concept of never trust and always verify. And never trust and always verify. There are many methods for verifying and authenticating the user's access, and these include encryption, behavioral profiling, and two-factor or multi-factor authentication. In August this year, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, part of the US Department of Commerce, published a very detailed overview of the core logical components that make up a ZTA network strategy. This document's freely available from the NIST website and will be discussed in more detail in the ISG Thought Leadership paper, which will be published soon. And there's a description in there, and there's a link to that website as well. A ZTA has many advantages over the traditional perimeter security model. It also has many other benefits beyond improved cybersecurity, and these include improved asset discovery, protection through microsegmentation, which is all about the ZTA practice of shifting the emphasis from the perimeter of the network to the individual devices and services within it, each of which has its own access control. Then, of course, incident detection and resolution itself. Because the discrete processes and assets are segmented from each other, any performance issues can be easily identified and addressed, not just those related to security, I might add. And then effective implementation through what seems to be pronounced SASE. Depends which country you're from, but SASE, S-A-S-E. This is Secure Access Service Edge. SASE incorporates traditional WAN security with cloud-based services such as cloud access, security brokers, and other SaaS-delivered security services, applying ZTA compliance. And of course, once you've implemented the ZTA, the process that you go through to get to this stage greatly increased the segmentation and compartmentalization of the corporate information ecosystem. So it makes governance and compliance much easier and ultimately much less expensive. And if you've gone through the trouble of the ZTA, then you know everything about your organization. You know what's connected, you know who's got what asset, you know the ins and outs, you know the strengths and weaknesses. And this is an important part of an overall digital transformation process, actually knowing what you're doing. You have to know where you are before you can actually transform. So the ZTA makes it easier to adopt a building block approach to digital transformation, transforming business processes in a discrete and manageable fashion. So there are lots of things that you can do to set yourself up to handle APTs and get moving on a ZTA. There are many checklists available from lots of people, and so ISG was put together a list of 13 components as shown on these charts, but there are a number that are worth pointing out specifically. The first is to develop a comprehensive cyber action plan. After you've done that, develop and maintain practical cyber defense policies, but not just develop them, ensure your staff develop a cybersecurity mindset and culture, that they think about the whole ZTA mindset. Importantly, ensure your intrusion prevention systems are evolving to meet new threats. And on the next slide, another list of 6, but carry out thorough risk analysis and vulnerabilities assessment, conduct cybersecurity drills and red team, blue team simulation. Don't just have a policy there. Don't have something set up, test it in real life. Maintain very high governance and compliance standards. Be very ruthless, be very rigorous, and be very vigorous about this. And make sure that you can automate your incident response capabilities and not just rely on a human somewhere. And at the end, most of these things are very difficult for even the largest organizations to do themselves. So choose the right software and service partner to do this. So some key takeaways. The pandemic has greatly increased the threats posed by advanced persistent threats, and the cybersecurity landscape has now changed forever. Effective defense against state-sponsored or other criminal APTs requires highly skilled cybersecurity practitioners with the skills and resources to defend corporate and even national level infrastructure. As ETA replaces the old concept of trust and verify with the new concept of never trust and always verify, and once regarded as a luxury, as ETA is increasingly becoming a necessity as more security professionals realize that it is the most appropriate way of dealing with APTs and many other evolving cybersecurity threats. The advantages of implementing as ETA go well beyond improving cybersecurity. As I mentioned before, the effective management of the networks and the assets and understanding what your organization actually looks like to implement the ZTA can transform an organization's infrastructure, information infrastructure. However, as I mentioned before, if you're going to use a partner to do this, you need to find one who can actually demonstrate that their software, services, processes, and experience can successfully deliver what you need in this next generation cybersecurity environment. So thank you, Anand, and I'll hand back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Craig, for the lovely perspective. I think we all of us here know a lot about APTs, ZTAs, and SASE and new technologies that you talked about. And with that, I would love to invite AT&T team here. We have 2 senior leaders, Jorgen Red and Carlos Garcia, who has joined us. Jorgen is the AT&T Director of Sales for Americas. He has been part of the tech industry for the last 10 years, working very exclusively with the dedicated security organization and SOC partners. And also, he has spent 2 years with AT&T now. And he also has helped the MSSPs and global partners in onboarding dozens of SOC partners around the unified security management. And also joining Jorgen is Carlos Garcia, who is a Technical Sales Associate Director for MSSP and the channels at AT&T. And he has about 20 years of experience. And Carlos is a subject matter expert in unified security management, Alien Vault, USM Anywhere, cybersecurity solutions, and Unix-based operating systems. So thank you so much, Jorgen and Carlos, for joining us. And like the perspective that Craig has set up, I would request you to share the perspective from AT&T around the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand, and thank you, Craig. I think you've set the stage very well for the situation that we're dealing with now in the new world that we're all living in. Really, with cyber attacks on the rise, with more distributed networks, with an increased number of endpoints, with new methods of attacks, with new groups and new types of groups that are doing the attacking, really taking a advanced threat protection approach to combat these threats, to combat APTs, it's critical. We hear a lot of buzzwords, of course, as we're all in tech, right? So in the last year, we've heard a lot of buzz around a SASE approach, leveraging WAN and CASB, firewall as a service, zero trust. We hear a lot about protecting the edge, perimeter security, application security, implementing threat detection, vulnerability management. All of these tools, these technologies, these strategies, they've never been more important. And I think really the question that organizations need to ask themselves today is, do we have the internal expertise? Do we have the internal dedicated security staff? And do we have a built out, robust security operations center internally to deliver on this ever-changing landscape and to manage all of the technologies? Myself and Carlos, we work with AT&T Cybersecurity, and we work specifically with our SOC provider partners like Tech Mahindra, veterans in the space. So today I'd like to talk a little bit about threat detection and response via USM Anywhere that our seasoned MSSPs like Tech Mahindra are leveraging today. Ruma, slide please. So when we're talking about threat detection and response, and we're talking about USM, there is a lot of different features and functionality that's baked into the platform for an MSSP to use and to leverage these to deliver these robust security outcomes. So, of course, asset discovery is incredibly important. Understanding the layout and all of the endpoints, all of the IPs, all of the devices that we have connected to our network. Leveraging a vulnerability scanner to tell us where are we weak, where do we need to patch, where do we need to shore things up. Being able to run intrusion detection. So here we're talking about network intrusion detection, north-south traffic to the outbound internet, and being able to inspect that traffic and make sure everything is secure. EDR, endpoint detection and response, has never been more important, especially in a post-COVID world. So being able to monitor endpoints, these these servers, these workstations, other endpoints of all varying degrees, and be able to monitor them in a single place. As Craig said, behavioral monitoring, incredibly important to be able to identify any suspicious behavior, be able to take a look at any potentially compromised systems. And of course, the two big ones, especially for us on the TDR, the threat detection and response side, and any SOC provider, is your SIM, your security information and event management tool, and log management, in addition to security and compliance reporting. Of course, a SIM and SIEM is an incredibly important tool. It's a very robust analytics engine. And anytime you're working with a SIM, your output is only going to be good as the threat intelligence that you have funneling in. So with AT&T Cybersecurity, our threat intelligence is varied. We have a dedicated team in our Alien Labs team, security threat researchers. My counterpart Carlos will dig in a little bit into threat intelligence here as we go on, but I can't stress the importance enough of leveraging a SIM as an analytics tool and having that contextual, that context that comes from threat intelligence to provide a MSSP and a SOC provider the ability to execute on these threats and these alarms and be able to take appropriate action. And of course, security and compliance reporting, whether you're up against PCI, you're up against HIPAA as a healthcare organization, you need to adhere to GDPR or to ISO controls, whatever it may be. Being able to report on all of those different compliances, it's critical for any SOC provider to be able to provide their services to their end customers. Ruma, slide please. One more, please. All right, so we've talked about these varied networks. We've talked about how we have a distributed workforce. Well, if you think about it, we also have all of these disparate tools and log sources out there. So it's incredibly important for a platform to be able to work seamlessly along all of these different platforms and consume all this information. So with us, with AT&T Cybersecurity, we're able to ingest data from all kinds of sources. So whether an organization is in AWS or is in Azure, they're in Google Cloud, they have a traditional on-premise network, or maybe a MPLS connection between multiple offices in addition to their public cloud space. They're leveraging Office 365 for email. They're leveraging G Suite to share documents. Being able to take all of this data and put it into a single container and run alarms and be able to look at what's going and monitoring all these disparate deployments. Being able to take logs from a Palo Alto firewall, for instance, to be able to take logs from Carbon Black that's protecting you on the front end, and be able to put those together. It's a very powerful tool for a SOC provider to be able to leverage. Again, it's all about delivering those robust security outcomes to their clients. Slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about the architecture that we have with our MSSPs. We have a single tenant model. So what this means is, as our SOC providers have 1, 5, 10, 20, 100, 200 customers, each customer has their own disparate stack. So there's no risk of cross-contamination or data spillage between any customers. Of course, as you get into degrees of magnitude and you have many, many customers, that would be a separate UI for each individual customer. And of course, that just wouldn't do. So with our MSSP program, our SOC providers, they leverage USM Central, which serves as a central aggregator point for everything in these individual tenants. So as you can see here, there's no risk of cross-contamination or data spillage. Each customer has their own complete stack, no dependencies. And if there's any security problems or configuration issues among a single client, there's no risks to any others. Slide, please. So again, talking about USM Central, really it's that single pane of glass that aggregates all of the alarms, all the vulnerabilities, all the configuration issues for each disparate client. So this allows our SOC provider partners to have this robust, high-speed offering, being able to monitor a plethora of customers in real time and be able to act accordingly and swiftly. So we may have 100 customers, we have 100 UIs, all that is feeding all their alarms and vulnerabilities into this single pane of glass that would be ran in our SOC, like Tech Mahindra's. Slide, please. Of course, when we're talking about any SaaS application like our cloud-based threat detection and response, you can see that security is incredibly important when you're storing anything in the cloud. So, of course, we at AT&T, we take security incredibly seriously. So with our TDR with USM, you'll see that we are aligned with the NIST cybersecurity framework. We are PCI DSS level 1 service provider. We adhere to the ISO 27001 controls. We are SOC 2 Type 2 certified compliant. Of course, if any of our partners, our SOC partners, customers are in the healthcare industry, HIPAA compliance is paramount. So we support HIPAA regulatory compliance. And of course, we're certified Azure and AWS Advanced Technology Partner, as well as being third-party verified as GDPR ready. So as you can see, it is a very robust product that allows our SOC provider partners to be able to deliver on these ever important security outcomes for their customers. So I know we talked from a high level there about our stack and kind of some of the functionality within our stack. I would like to dig in a little bit here with Alien Labs, again, talking about threat intelligence that's providing all of the context around all of these technologies. So Carlos, I'll hand this to you, sir. And Carlos, perhaps on.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I was on mute. Thank you very much, Jordan and Greg, for the introduction. Actually, it was a great introduction for my speech today. We're going to be talking about Alien Labs today and what is exactly Alien Labs. Just keep in mind that we have been talking during the last 20 minutes about the tool, our concept, or the things that the companies needs in terms of how they deal with threat detection. And we are talking about the Unified Security Management Platform. That's the technology that companies like Tech Mahindra they are using in the Security Operations Center. So we mentioned things like vulnerability management, asset discovery, the SIEM, network IDS, host IDS, those things. But from today, I'm not going to talk about the technology itself. I'm going to be talking about what happened in the background and our brand called AT&T Alien Lab. So let's first start discussing what is AT&T Alien Labs exactly. And this is a global team of threat researchers, cybersecurity researchers, and data scientists who they combine or they use our technology and their knowledge in analytics and machine learning to analyze what is probably one of the large and most diverse collection of threat data in the world. And that includes the visibility that we have of the AT&T IP network. That's very important. So we produce curated intelligence and from the Alien Labs, and we directly fed that into USM Anywhere. And that's in what we produce that correlation rules and other high-level threat indicators that are written by the lab's research, and then we update that daily. This, as you can see, is a really important part of the equation here from the Alien Labs. So a lot of times we're doing presentation with customers when we talk, okay, let's talk about our SIEM capabilities, let's talk about vulnerability management capability, our asset discovery. But at the end of the day, when you have all those devices in your infrastructure sending the logs, you need the brain, you need someone or some component in the technology doing the correlation and generating all the threat intelligence facilities. So that's our AT&T Labs, is our threat intelligence team. And as we're speaking about the quality of the intelligence, we also interact with the AT&T CISO office, the Chief Security Officer, and the AT&T Global SOCs. And they have a private group with the OTX, which is also our open threat exchanges. It's our threat sharing platform. And so just together producing that threat intelligence for our customers and pushing it in our technology. So next slide, please. So talking a little bit about it, how we collect the data, from where we're collecting the data. It is generally accepted that organizations or your threat collection strategy is directly impacting the quality of your threat intelligence. That's a logical implication. So it is important for us to share today how we are collecting that threat analysis. So we collect a huge volume of global threat data across AT&T. From the Open Threat Exchange, and which is, as I mentioned before, our threat sharing community with around 100,000 security professionals. And we also use our USM Global Sensor Network, which is anonymous data contributed voluntarily by our customers from their USM installations. So just to give you an idea of that scale, guys, more than 200 petabytes of traffic cross the AT&T network daily, and including 100 billion proof from potential vulnerabilities each day. And by the way, this number here in this presentation are daily numbers. So Alien Labs collects more than 20 million threat observation every day from our USM sensor network, which goes directly into our threat analysis engine. So in one day, for example, we analyze more than 370,000 malware samplers and hundreds of thousands of other threat indicators. So we also have access to the world's top threat experts, and that's the human component here. Alien Labs also regularly consults with the threat analysts of the AT&T Chief Security Office. So that's basically the men and women who protect the AT&T network, and as well analysts in our 8 Global Security Operations Center, including the AT&T Global Network Operations Center. So as I mentioned earlier, OTX at the same time is the world's largest open intelligence community, made by up to 100,000 threat researchers who they publish information on threat every day, and we consume that data in our labs. So this is, we believe that this is a unique combination: access to large, diverse threat data and the expertise of the top global threat analysis and our source in our Security Operations Center. It is an extremely powerful and unique combination that you won't find anywhere else. Okay, so next slide, please. Then I'm just going to try to move to, okay, what is happening daily. We already mentioned the size of the data that we collect and who is or what is the AT&T Alien Labs exactly. So if we think about the average cyber threat analyst or security vendor day, I mean, they are confronted with many challenges. So most analysts, they are spending an incredible amount of time reading, analyzing information, reading reports, feeds, internal analysis, reading blogs, academic papers, using consumer threat intelligence from different sources. And then they have to try to make sense all of that information, analyze it. And maybe they're using they are doing that manually, or using things like artificial intelligence or machine learning to identify what is relevant. But depending on the size of the organization, probably they are using a database, internal database, or in some cases for small companies, it's just a mental database. And all of that reading and analysis, they have then to create a bunch of threat indicators. Now, trying to make sense, or they have to make sense of and understand those threat intelligence and how they are impacting their infrastructure. And then, most importantly, they need to correlate them. They include that in the operation, and that could be something simple like, okay, I have to patch my group of domain controllers, or we already identify a threat vector and it's affecting one critical portion of my infrastructure. So it is not an easy task. And for years, the industry relies on indicators of compromise to track malicious activity, include such things like IP addresses, domains, email addresses, etc. And IOCs, they can be a useful, I would say, first line of defense to identify historic activity. However, it's generally accepted for the industry that they are lower level IOCs, is that they are not sufficient to identify and attack threats. And the main reason is because cyber criminals, they can change certain IOCs very easily. You can change hashes, you can change IP address, and that's kind of the techniques that they are using. So because IOCs are something ephemeral, it's better to concentrate in higher level detection techniques. They're more difficult to change. So what we are doing is, can you go to the next slide, please? Is we are taking all that data or all those trace indicators, and our Alien Labs threat intelligence team, we are processing this data with different techniques. Obviously, there is a big component that we use, supervised machine learning and artificial intelligence in our models. And then when we consider that we need to do a reverse engineering, a malware inspection, and a specific research with our team, our security researchers are doing that, and they are just feeding that again in our product. And then these are the type of things that are more difficult to attack to change. And this is where the industry frameworks like the cyber kill chain and the MITRE ATT&CK come in place, just to help defenders to organize the information, to map those correlation rules that we produce directly integrated in the USM, and make the lives easier for companies like Tech Mahindra when they are doing the remediation process, when they are doing to the next step and say, okay, I already have the alarm. I already know the tactics and techniques. I already know how they are matching with my infrastructure. And now I'm going to do the next step. And that's what we call like threat defense in depth. It's enable detection at multiple stages of an attack, which ensures resilience. So in a nutshell, frameworks like the MITRE ATT&CK or cyber kill chains just simply organize all those threat indicators and show how they relate with each other within your organization. Okay, so let's take a look at how that looks into a product. Next slide, please. This is a screenshot of an alarm. We triggered it when we run a family of malware, known as the trick malware, in a sample in our environment. And you can see that multiple alarms are automatically triggered in the USM Anywhere when a victim opens a malicious Excel file. In this case, it's a Microsoft Office Excel file executing a PowerShell in your environment. As I mentioned, these alarms are based on threat intelligence and correlation rules written by our Alien Labs team, which are automatically updated in the USM. Alarms are triggered along several stages of the kill chains, as you can see here in this screenshot. In this case, executing and defense evasion. Within the defense evasion tactic, we can also see other techniques being used, like such a disabling the security tool, masquerading, that kind of thing. Is you're going to be able to have, okay, I already forward the logs to my tool, the USM Anywhere process that with the correlation engine. We already have the correlation rules, and then we are triggering the alarms, and we are also mapping those two best practice framework or industry frameworks. At this point, when you see that what alarm was triggered in this particular example, you can drill down into each of these stages as well. For example, if we drill down in the tactic exploitation of client execution, we see that alarm that was triggered for a code execution. And that's a suspicious process that was created by a Microsoft application. So that's the common example that a security analyst or a person working in Tech Mahindra, he's going to take this information and he's going to move to the next stage, which is probably the remediation and orchestration, some automated in your customer infrastructure. Okay.
Fantastic.
So
and Carlos,
yeah.
Thank you. Anand, thinking about all of these advanced tactics and the tool that we have here, I guess should we switch gears and talk a little bit about the services side from Tech Mahindra?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Carlos and Jordan. And that was a wonderful insight. I'm right. It was very useful for the audience today, I'm sure, and they would be excited to ask more and more about this. AT&T USM is a great solution. I'm sure with the power of central management, AI analytics, and along with AT&T Alien Labs, it becomes an even bigger holistic proposition altogether. But let's understand what Tech Mahindra is strategically partnering with AT&T, and for that, I would like to welcome Mr. Rajesh Chandiramani. He's a Senior Vice President and Global Business Head of Cybersecurity and Data Analytics Competencies at Tech Mahindra. He is, in his illustrious career spanning 28 years, Rajesh has led multiple diverse global programs and various organizations. And now, as a part of the senior management, Rajesh is a key pillar or architect for our Tech Mahindra's transformation journey. And with that, welcome, Rajesh. We would love to hear your perspectives of how Tech Mahindra and AT&T are partnering together.
Yeah, thanks, Anand. And first of all, thanks, Carlos and Jordan, for an impressive overview on the AT&T capability to deliver a secure enterprise. I think we are proud to be a partner of AT&T as we speak, and the relationship we have is over 2 decades. And it's a 360-degree relationship with AT&T. So absolutely a pleasure to come here and present what we can do together for the customers who are listening to us and the larger customer base of TechM. If you can move on the slide, I wanted to first introduce Tech Mahindra to the audience. And we have been in the security business for more than 18 years. And we are a full-scale end-to-end security provider with about 170 enterprises who have been secured end-to-end by us. A large pool of certified resources and across technologies and across geographies is what we work together, and supporting more than 60 OEMs and MSSP partners. So absolutely the depth and the capability of Tech Mahindra to secure enterprises is second to none, and that's something which I wanted to bring forward before I get into our engagement on how we want to work and partner with AT&T and bring more secured enterprise customers globally. If you go to the next slide, please. Now, this slide talks about how we actually go about securing the digital enterprise. And the first step is quantifying and telling enterprise where do they actually stand when it comes to cybersecurity in terms of being vulnerable and prioritizing what is important for the enterprises to be secure. As we move on, we run a well-established security operations center globally, including partnering with AT&T and the Alien Vault labs, which was just talked about by Jordan and Carlos, and do an end-to-end unified security management. We also have a very deep practice on securing identities, working across some of the major IDAM identity and access providers across the globe. Craig talked about how important it is with the current situation of very intelligent hackers to prevent come up with a new architecture, which is the Zero Trust framework and the architecture. We are working with some of the top technology companies to make sure that we are able to deploy the Zero Trust framework for our enterprise customers. Further on, we do very focused application security, working with companies like Virsac and other security, Avocado and other security companies for providing secure DevOps. And of course, the edge security is absolutely important. And we all know that Tech Mahindra has more than 50% of business in telecommunications and media and entertainment. And the impact of 5G and virtualization of network and IoT devices is absolutely prime important to be secured. And as Craig said, that the attackers are finding the most vulnerable elements in the network, whether it's an edge device or it's the network itself, or the policies or the devices. They just find what is vulnerable and they enter into the network and they create havoc. and with very, very different objectives. So it is very, very important, and it's absolutely with the digital transformation taking the front seat. Cybersecurity is coming out to be a most important element on the boardroom discussion for the 1,000 customers we are engaged with. If you go to the next slide, I think here we talk about Tech and Security on actually delivering a multi-geography, multi-vertical security operations center 24/7, where we manage more than 8 billion events every day. And the variety of the customers and the technology platforms which we engage with is phenomenal. If you come to the American market, we have actually built our SOC operations on back of the fantastic technology which was defined just before my presentation by Jorgen and Carlos. And we are looking at how do we extend this technology across the globe and offer it as a seamless 24/7 operation center for threat management, APT, what was well defined by Craig, to customers globally. So we do that for a living, and I think we are extending it further. We are now getting more closer to our customers by building stocks in Europe, in Asia Pacific, and in Americas, so that we are able to deliver the response times, more locally and handle them within the domains of the geography constraint. If you go to the next slide. And as an attempt for us to be able to expand what we have built for the American market to the global and also extend it to American customers, we are making an offer at this moment from Tech Mahindra and AT&T together to offer actually a free cyber risk quantification assessment, which is a 1-week process, which checks on the vulnerabilities and risks on all your existing environment, both outside in and inside out. So we not only do an outside in view of what the vulnerabilities are in the network, but also from inside out with a very detailed report telling exactly how the enterprises are getting vulnerable in this remote working and during COVID environment. And we are also pleased to offer the first 10 customers who are actually going to go through this risk quantification a free proof of concept together along with AT&T, so that we are able to actually work together and solve your enterprise security problems. And this is something which we are extremely optimistic, because we do know that there are vulnerabilities happening every second, every minute, every day, and which we are going unaware about. And these attackers are hiding somewhere within the network, as Craig mentioned, and planning their action. What we would be able to do is not only do quantifying of the risks across your dealer network, across your offices and branches and sub-branches, but also extend it and within the four militarized and demilitarized zones with your work from home employees, but also then onboard them onto the AT&T platform, which Jorgen and Carlos talked about. So that's from me. I think Ruma is going to send an email to all the attendees on how you can register and qualify yourself for the free risk assessment. I think we are going to offer it to 50 first customers, the risk assessment, and the first 10 who are agreeing for the proof of concept along with AT&T, we're going to take it on board. So that's an offer. I think now we can open, Anand, the floor for any Q&A. I'm done from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rajesh. That's what very insightful. I think you have summed up the whole proposition very holistically now. So yes, this session is now open for Q&A. So I would request all our audience, distinguished audience, to start pouring in your questions. And anybody who wants to ask a question, please raise your hands. We would unmute you and you can ask the question directly also. I think what we covered today was great. We started with a problem of APT. We understood what is APT and the other world issues from a cyber threat perspective that we looked at, a very holistic solution from AT&T. Then we covered it with a services angle of how all this coming together for all the customers, right? So yes, the first question is coming in from Abhi Narot. So I think this is a question for you, Jorgen. Is the CRQ assessment for both IT and OT devices? All right. Oh, this is a CRQ assessment, right? So yes, this is going to cover the entire outside in view, the CRQ assessment, cyber risk quantification. We would be covering the outside view for all the customers.
I think Anand, on this, what we do is we cannot do the whole network assessment in 1 week. But what we do is we agree with the customer a sample size, limited sample size, which will have a combination of all devices and IT systems, and then execute it, and we are able to produce a report. And once we are onboarded on it, then we do a thorough POC.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Please raise your hands and we'll be happy to unmute you and we can take your questions. Our team is looking at the window also to look at your Q&A questions.
And Anand, I know we did have a question around asset discovery and whether asset discovery with threat detection and response with USM is agentless. So indeed, our asset discovery functionality within the platform, it is indeed agentless. However, there is some extra functionality that you're able to witness and see if we do leverage an agent. Carlos, did you want to expand on that a little bit on asset discovery?
Yeah, because part of our initial deployment includes we have 3 ways to collect data from your infrastructure. The main one is the sensor installation in your environment, and the sensor is the one in charge to run the asset discovery. So it's an IP address-based tool, so we're going to have a conversation with you about the network topology, the sensor location, but let's just take a simple example that you have only one data center, only one location, and we determine that we need only one sensor. He's going to be running a map and asset discovery in your infrastructure, so we are going to load that in our asset DB in the database, and then we start from there after we have the inventory loaded in the tool. It is included in part of the deployment, so long story short, we don't need the agent installation. We also have an agent. It's available. It's the Alien Vault agent that comes with all features, but it's not part of the asset discovery. Hopefully, I answered the question for the person.
Yeah, the next question is for you, Carlos. So what are the sources for threat data pool collection when you look at from Alien Labs perspective?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm understanding what do they mean with full collection, because I explained pretty much the sources. I don't know if they are talking about sources from their infrastructure or our sources. So we produce our own threat intelligence. We consume data from the AT&T network, and we also use their infrastructure and the Open Threat Exchange. So Open Threat Exchange is one of the components combined. That's the loop that I present in my slideshow. Is the AT&T CISO, is our SOCs, our global rate of the sensors, and plus the information that we produce in OTX.
Sure. Yeah, I think that covers the answer. The next question is for you, Jorgen. This is about any competitor analysis that you might like to share.
Usually, I mean, we won't get into too much of a tit for tat in this kind of a forum, but certainly, I guess I would counter with some questions that you would want to ask yourself when using a security platform. So number one, of course, my team, we specialize in working with MSSPs, and our tool is but one tool in their stack, right? We have full service MSSPs that are able to cover a wide breadth of solutions. When we're talking from our side specifically with threat detection and response via USM, because of the varied stack that we have with SIM and asset discovery, with vulnerability assessments, intrusion detection, behavior monitoring, we have a lot of competitors that compete with us in any given part of our stack. I think with us, the ability to cover a wide breadth of functionality and be able to put it all together for our SOC provider partners, it enables them to concentrate doing the work and actually delivering outcomes to their customers, as opposed to working with these other tools that could be consolidated. So you've got a consolidated tool set on the fronts that you can, and then of course you're leveraging a plethora of other tools across other services and functionalities.
Yeah, I think it's very important to highlight the conversation around the total cost of ownership of these type of solutions, because our vision is to provide that interface at single pane of glass with several or essential security tools, and then being able to have a partner that work with you and they record the remediation after the threat detection. So we try to avoid that conversation that this tool is or the other, because it's just a feature or technology conversation. It's more oriented, okay, I'm using this technology for the threat detection, and then I have the relationship with a partner like Tech Mahindra, and how I'm managing my detection and remediation process with services. It's more business conversation and not technology conversation. Of course, we have competitors where maybe you like a feature outside QRadar. They are big companies as well. They're great. But we also have a really powerful message. And that was one reason, because we highlight today the threat intelligence component and the power that we have now that we are part of the AT&T.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I would love to now welcome, thank you, our elite panel today. So thanks, Carlos, thanks, Jorgen, thanks, Craig and Rajesh, for sharing your perspectives. I think it was a great session. And I'm sure the audience today loved the perspectives being shared, and they would be thinking of more questions to be asked. So there are a lot of questions which are coming in on the window, but we are at the top of the hour. So our team would get back to all the audience questions individually to them. And I would love to thank again the panelists here for sharing their perspectives. Thank you once again. And thanks to the audience for joining the session. We would be happy to serve you. Please send us your queries, and we would be happy to engage with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anand. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Rajesh. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.